Welcome to The Unbridled Woman with your host, Deanne Rose. Get ready to embark on a thrilling journey to the core of your feminine essence. Awaken and harness the immense inner strength you possess. Rise up majestically and powerfully, embodying your most authentic and unstoppable self. Get ready for an electrifying revelation of spirit and power. Here comes Deanne, ready to set your world ablaze with inspiration and wisdom.
Welcome to the Unbridled Woman. Hello, everyone. Today we are going to unlock the doors to financial freedom and empowerment. In today's show, we are going to dive into a topic that resonates deeply with all of you: to ditch debt, save for retirement, and make dreams a reality. If you, like many, feel unprepared for retirement, this show is for you. My financial expert here, Dalene, is here to shift perspectives and ignite a spark of hope. It's time to lift our heads from the sands of uncertainty and acquaint ourselves with the empowering world of numbers. Dalene will guide us through practical steps to break free from debt, strategies to save for your golden years, and inspiring ways to turn long-held dreams into reality. Remember, it's never too late to start rewriting your financial story. Your journey towards financial freedom is not just a distant dream, but a tangible reality within your reach. Let's embark on this transformative journey together and get ready to unleash the financially savvy and unbridled woman in you. So as we do in our episodes, our shows, we're going to do a little grounding, some deep belly breaths to get present here. So if you are able, I invite you to close your eyes, to take a deep breath in through your nose and a slow exhale through your mouth. And inhaling through your nose, inhaling all that you want to bring into your day, all the good stuff, the good juju. And as you exhale, just releasing any heaviness and what no longer serves you, any doubts, any worries, any anxieties. And on the third, make this your deepest inhale of the day so far. Just really feeling it in, coming up from the bottom of your belly all the way up to the top of your chest. And exhaling. Oh, coming here. We're all present. We're together in this circle together. So I am very excited on our topic today. There's always sometimes taboo around money or talking about money. There's sometimes shame around maybe not having enough, especially if you get to a certain age and you look back at your bank account and there's that aha moment of like, okay, well, now what happens? So my beautiful guest today, Dalene Higgins, is a financial coach for Gen Xers and the host of the Wealthy After 40 podcast. Being brave in her career and her personal budgeting, she was able to retire at the age of 50. That's amazing. And now she is on a mission to help Gen Xers ditch debt, save for retirement, and make the dreams a reality. Even though most Gen Xers feel unprepared for retirement, Dalene believes that it's never too late to start. Because when you get your head out of the sand and get to know your numbers, you'll realize your financial freedom is closer than you think. Welcome to the show, Dalene. So the first part of this journey together, we're going to talk about your unbridled story, maybe about something that has brought you into what you're doing right now, into and service into this world. And then on the second half of our time together, we'll go a little bit more deeper into how to decrease that budget and still live the life of your dreams. So what I ask my guests first is, what does the word unbridled mean to you?
It means, just go for it. That's what I think of. It's like, it kind of ties in with my ideas of somebody has to have a dream. And when I tell them to dream, like dream without barriers, dream without restrictions, dream like you did as a child. And so unbridled just means set your mind to it and go, go big.
I love that. Yes, go big. It's got a goosebumps on that when you're like, it's just like dream like you're a child. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
it's like as adults, we just got like this veil gets put over our daydreaming, and we're told that that's not true, or get real, right? Come back to reality. But that's where we manifest, right? That's where we can really live out our truest desires and bring them into our own reality, and which of course is vital for our financial future and our stability, and how, what's our retirement going to look like. If we don't dream about our retirement, we want to do in it, then how can we actually start to prepare for it, right?
Exactly.
So I would love to hear a story of your remembering, reclaiming, and rising to share with our listeners today.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to kind of when I had my aha moment before my financial journey, but I had put myself through school. I'd got an accounting degree, but I was working a government job. And with that government job, at the time, it felt like a burden, right? That I had all this time invested, and which meant a pension. So if I were to walk away, I would lose that ability to that pension being paid out to me, because you had to have meet qualifying numbers, which was number of years. So I put myself through college, got my accounting degree, bachelor's, and just tried to, and it worked with it where I was at. I was working for the local law enforcement, and I moved around in different technical positions as support personnel. And one of the last ones was a crime analyst. So I was using a lot of the technological that I'd used in accounting, and, analyzing numbers, because that's basically what it came down to as far as when you're looking at crimes. I did that and I loved that, but I was ready for something more. I'm like, I would really love to walk out of this life having used this degree that I, went for. I worked full time, went to school, sometimes full time, married. Luckily, I finished before I had my child. But yet I was like, where's my return on this? I want this return. And actually stepped out and went for my master's. So I was headed into my MBA. So as I'm doing that, my goal at that time was actually go be a professor at the local state college. And you could do that with a master's. I'm like, that's the same pension, that I talk about. I'm like, this will work out. And at the time I was close to finishing, they announced they were going to university. That requires a different level of education to teach at a university. So as on a full-time position, I know I could have probably adjunct. And so, I was kind of beat down. I was like, oh, what? So I just started, scouring the internet, looking in government, because I wanted to maintain. By that time, I had almost 17 years towards a 30-year pension.
Wow.
So I just kept looking, and it wasn't like I was limited on a whole lot of options, but I was limited because it was only government. But this beautiful job popped up. It was with the local sheriff's office as a financial analyst, required a bachelor's degree. And I remember driving to the interview, and I'm like, please, just let me have this. I want this. This is just like the best fit, because I had worked for 4 years in the finance department of the, local city. And I'm sorry, but I hated it. There's just something about the environment in law enforcement. And I had been there since I was 18. So it was where I grew up. And so I went in for my interview. I left. I felt pretty good, but you know how you leave an interview and you're like, I did okay. So I can't be mad at myself, but we'll just see. And, I think it was within a couple of days, they called and offered me the position, and I still had to go through a background check and all of that, which was fine. I didn't have fear anything. And so for the last 15 years of my career, I was it was a financial analyst, and then it upgraded to a finance manager. And ultimately what I did was I helped cops budget. So they are not desk jockeys, right? They've gone in to be in the field, but as they promote, they are required to handle their budgets. And I became the person that could speak to them, speak their language, because I grew up in law enforcement, and also speak the accounting numbers, and I remember one lieutenant in my office, and he's like, but it doesn't make sense. And I said, it's not a bank account. So you're just going to have to trust me. And it's, I just skyward through that 15-year journey of working with them, and going from a meek, I don't want to say really meek. I wasn't real meek, but quiet learning, because it was definitely a learning curve. And by the end, they were like, can I do this? And they really just trusted in me. And that building that trust was so neat. But by the end, when I was trying to find my replacement, when I retired, I was just like, oh my gosh. And my daughter reminded me, yeah, it was my daughter. She's like, did you know all that the day you started? And I'm like, yeah, that's true. I did not. So just that recognition of that growth and just going for it. It was a lot of fun. It was a great job.
Hmm. I love that. Well, congratulations for making the 30 years
Yes, thank you.
in that, and finagling it and sticking with it too, because that's a big chunk of time to be within a company. Or, I mean, basically government is a company, right? I guess.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm glad that you found something that you felt very aligned to spend that, that second half with, and really be able to give back to those cops. Were they mostly male or female, or good?
I had 2 female out of 22 lieutenant and above that I worked with. So yeah, there were 2 females. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. So now, okay, so that's the period of your growth, and then, all right, now what happens?
Yeah, so let me just tell you, when you think about retiring, everybody's like, oh, it's going to be in 5 years, or it's going to be, and they claim a year of like 2028. Let's just use that as an example. That's the easy part. What becomes the harder part is choosing the month and the date. And so as I was coming, I finally said to my husband, I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready. He's like, okay, he was supportive. I'm like, all right, I'll go in a year. And that would have been October. He's like, okay. So then I got thinking about it, and I'm like, well, why do I want to go in October? There was really nothing tied to it, like it just is not, going with your word aligned with me. So then I thought, well, I'll go August 1st, because that was my mom's birthday, but it was also her death day. And I'm like, I'll just link it up with her. That will be a great. And then I got thinking about it, and it wasn't that I didn't want to link it up with her, but I'm like, why am I going at the end of the summer? When you start working, when you finally graduate high school, there is no such thing as summers anymore, unless you're a teacher, right? So having summers off, I'm like, that's a thing. I can make it a thing. Right. So I chose June 1 as my retirement date, mainly because I wanted to have a summer off. And so now I get summers, winter, fall, spring, everything off. But that was journeying through that and trying to determine when to leave. Not that it was hard, but I didn't realize the thought process that I would need behind it. So, hopefully as you're getting there, that you can start thinking of how to bring it in alignment with you. And some people I know, like a situation presents itself, and so they're able to take it because of that. But, when you're just like choosing because it's time, it's like a little more difficult. So.
Yeah. I mean, I have some thoughts regarding that. There's an identification there, right? You've been doing this for so long, it becomes part of your identity, and now this part is going to come to an end. So I love creating I love doing rituals and kind of things like that, like things end, there's a ritual for things begin. So I think there's a lot of presence to that, of like, okay, this is a major life transition for me. And, it's not just every day that I retire and close a chapter here in my life. So yeah, let me put some thought into this, and just really make it, something sacred that, you could celebrate that, I mean, was it last June that you,
no, it'll be 2 years coming up in June. So it was 22.
Oh, 22. Okay. So did you celebrate this in 2023, your retirement date, or did it come?
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
no, I did. Yeah.
Nice.
I recognize it now. I'm like, oh, coming up on the end of 2 years now. It's like very prominent in my mind, which June 1st had no other there's no other ties to it, right? And maybe that's kind of why I chose it. It's like it's by itself. But it was really, through a lot of that. And then as I was doing that, that's how I ended up, which I know we'll talk about in the second half, but that's how I became a financial coach, because I was like, all right, I'm 50. What am I going to do? It's not time to sit in the recliner and do nothing. Yes, I want the time freedom. I was looking forward to that. But what am I going to do to fill my days? And I just explored my interests, my hobbies, my desires, all of that I went through as I was, also determining when I would actually leave. And I am an avid fiction reader. I just consume fiction as I always have. So last year I read like 135 books. So typically I read 100 plus, which is funny because I don't log my nonfiction, but I do read a nonfiction in the middle of that. I probably read, I would say maybe 8 to 12 nonfiction a year, keep me apprised of, knowledge and all of that I need. But as I was thinking about that, okay, you love to read. What about helping other people to read? There's that project literacy at the library, or you could go work with the kids at the school and support them as a reading tutor. And I was like, I really don't want to be on somebody else's timeline,
Yes.
maybe eventually, right? Like, so. And then I came across financial coaching, and I realized the tie of the feeling I was receiving, as completing my financial dream, my financial goal. And I wanted to share that feeling with others. Not that they may have that same goal as retiring at 50 or retiring early or whatever it may be, but that feeling like that they can set a goal and create it and get there. And so that's really why I went that direction and started preparing myself for that. So that shift was a little bit easier. I didn't have to just go from, something to nothing, but it was good. It was good.
Yeah. And that's the important thing too, that you got on there, is the going from something to nothing. 'Cause I remember my ex-husband's dad, when he retired, he had such a hard time. And then he ended up getting sick, and he ended up passing away a few years after he retired. Looking back, is like almost he lost kind of like his purpose in life, so it's very important to have, or start, like you some reflection of, okay, like, what am I interested in? What hobbies can I start, keeping my mind engaged, and then the volunteering as well. Mm-hmm. And I can see that little reluctance too, is like, oh, but then, even though it's volunteering, right, there's still a time when I'm going to be at this place.
Yes.
So there's a time commitment. Yeah. And I think it's nice to have your freedom for a while. It's like when you were in school, right? I mean, you going to school when we were kids is, we're not getting paid for it. So it's kind of in a volunteer, but we're there. Yeah. But then the summers come, and there's just that freedom, because there's nothing scheduled. And you just use that to rejuvenate yourself. Then you get back into something that has a little bit more structure. And when you now are retired, you get to, especially the volunteer, you get to choose. You get to choose when you want to do it, what you want to do. And hopefully it doesn't become a job to you, but something that you're actually giving back and feeling good about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, all right. So let's get a little into how you are helping people now. So I'm interested in how, like, if someone comes to you and let's say they're 50 years old, and they're like, okay, I want to retire in 15 years, but I don't have much. What do I do? And I don't want to sacrifice a lot of stuff right now. I still want to live life, but not, sacrifice everything for these next 15 years. What would you suggest for them?
Well, I would first share, because my journey was 15 years. Yes, I had that pension, but they're also going to be approaching, right, Social Security. Hopefully that is there, especially if they have been working, and hopefully they have saved some. But the number one recommendation I would make if they don't want to give up anything, I would have them really consider like getting rid of debt. So going into retirement with less money committed means you need less money coming in. And so that right there is a dollar for dollar in a sense. And so, having them structure something around that 15 years. So, instead of having it paid off in they could probably very easily do it in 5-8 years without having to give up much either if they just got focused on it. And so recognizing what they truly want is the first important thing. And debt isn't necessarily our goal, but that beyond that, right? I want to retire in 15 years. Okay, what does it take to make what you want it to feel like and look like happen? And just then tying where you are today to what you want in 15 years and just making a plan. And I know a lot of people, they'll come to me and they're like, I don't want to give up anything. And what they don't recognize is that if they create a dream and they create that goal that is really of the heart and mind desire, the motivation and consistency to change is just so much easier. It's not the fact of giving up, it's the fact of making the exchange. So I used to care about this, but that is not going to help me get to here. And I want that more. And I think once you recognize that budget restriction that people, immediately go to as they think about budgeting, it goes away. It goes away because you're empowered now with your goal and your dream to do what you want with your money.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Empowered with your dream. I'm just going to write that down. I like that. It's so what I'm hearing is a mindset change really as well, to shift where you want to put your focus, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, and because do you find that when you're working with people when I remember having to do this, there's always different things, especially at the beginning of the year. Everyone's like, oh, write down your budget or, what you spend your money on. And something that is very enlightening when we write down, like, what am I spending money on? And then reflecting, like, why do I spend money there? And this happens sometimes, for me, and also I've heard other people, a lot of their subscriptions. So if they actually get like a list of all things that they've subscribed to, they realize they've been paying money on things that they totally forgot that they have anymore, right? So even like seeing something like that, you can actually start bringing more income in by getting rid of those things that you no longer use. Or I remember hearing one story where this woman was still paying for this subscription from an old boyfriend, something that she totally forgot. And like that was like $20 a month going out. And, it's been a few years since she broke up with him. So, taking care of that. And I think that kind of goes, the wording we used before was, when your head is in the sand, it's hard to really make good decisions and good choices for yourself if you don't see where your money is actually going, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my clients after session 1, before session 2, I ask of them to write down their bills by due date from the first of the month to the end of the month. And I had one client, she comes back and she goes, yeah, I canceled 4 of them. I don't need them anymore. And it was just the literal act of writing them down. So we had them in order for part of our management system that really had her reflecting. And it's, so sometimes it's not hard. Sometimes it's not hard at all.
Right. Yeah. It's just taking that time.
Exactly. So
why, and this is just a question, is because I'm just a curious question, in your work, what are you seeing that is that barrier that people don't want to look at their finances? Like, it's like, why do people want to keep their head in sand?
Yeah. So I think initially there was a situation, a moment, whatever it's defined as, where there was that feeling of shame and guilt, and it was bad, whether they overspent, whether, a bill came that they weren't aware of or weren't knowledgeable on, and they made a wrong choice, whatever it might be. So it's easier, instead of feeling that pain, to just not look. And so I think most of the time, like, they've had that and then they don't look. and they don't looking because they are expecting that same feeling is going to arise. So I think right there immediately is what causes them to immediately pull away.
Yeah.
So I tell people to go look and just look. And I can guarantee you without that situation, it's not going to feel that bad. And then eventually won't have that, oh, it's going to be bad. Oh, it's going to be bad. Oh, it's going to be horrible. And it might take a while, but that's just take one little step, open up your bank account, look at it, shut it down, and
Right.
that's a big step for some. So
Yes, because that goes with any relationship, because our relationship with money is similar to our relationship with people. If we don't, talk to the people in our lives, if we ignore them, we don't want to look at them, then that relationship isn't going to be very strong. They're not going to want to be in our life. And so as difficult it is to sometimes face, a shameful moment, which is just a moment in our life that, and we all make choices, I believe, and decisions in a way that's best for us at the time, or what we know, right? And we learn as we live life, and it's so we really see, oh, I should have done that, but you didn't know back then. If you did, you would have made a different choice. So now you know better. So just look at that, acknowledge it, do whatever you have to do. Maybe it's a forgiveness of yourself, and call that relationship back with money, and like, okay, let's have a fresh, brand new start together, right? let's create a new chapter together, and this is how we're going to do it. And so I'm excited how we're going to learn how to do that when we come back in a little bit. So thank you for sharing how you worked through your journey into setting yourself up. It would have been very easy for you to say, oh, I'm out of here, I'm going to find a different job. So I really admire your perseverance. So thank you, Dalene. And when we come back, we will be coming back more into diving into our relationship with money, debt, and realizing our dreams in our retirement. So stay tuned, and thank you so much for listening.
Welcome back to The Unbridled Woman with Deanne Rose. Have a question for Deanne or her guests? Join us on the show at 888-346-9141. That's 888-346-9141. Or email Deanne at theunbridledwomanrises@gmail.com. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to The Unbridled Woman. I am Deanne Rose, your host, and I am here with the beautiful Dalene Higgins, who has been sharing her story on embracing her unbridled self. Now we're going to roll up our sleeves, and we're going to dive deep into our relationship with money. So before our break, Dalene, you and I were talking about head in the sand, and some of us having that guilt and shame about maybe something a bad choice we made with money. And now we don't even want to look at our bank accounts because it brings up a lot of anxiety, and we don't want to face that. But there's also another version of head in the sand, is not wanting to acknowledge what we're spending our money on, or wanting to decrease that in order to make a change in our lives. So why don't we talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think a lot, if you're not feeling the shame or the guilt, the other side would be you're not wanting to give up anything, is what you ultimately are thinking. Because if I address my numbers, I'm going to have to give up something. I'm going to have to quit living my life the way I'm living. And, several of my last clients have come to me with that. And my approach, we don't do that. We actually take where you're at, what you're doing, and we lay it out in 3 buckets and show you, like, if there is some overage. But my last 3 clients, they actually walked away with saving $900 a month. Now, making sure that savings initially goes to your emergency fund, your sinking funds, and then your savings is how we teach, prioritizing there. But they didn't have to give up anything. And that client who, she wrote her list of bills, she gave up those four on her own. That was her own choice. That was nothing, it's just that realization. And so I think if you're, burying your head in the sand because you think you're going to have to give up something, more than likely you have more power than, looking at it. I realized on my budget journey how powerful I was with my money, that I could direct it exactly where I wanted to go and do the things I wanted it to do. So at the time I was working on a short-term goal of buying recreational property so we could camp there, ride our four-wheelers, all of those things. But I was also still looking towards, completing that 30 years with a pension and saving enough money for there, because the day I retired, I took a 40% cut in pay. And so being prepared to take that option was my long-term goal. And I just, as I was going through that journey, how powerful I could be with my money. I could direct it to buying that recreational property, which for me, when I said, my husband and I said we were going to do that, I thought there's no way we can do that. We can't afford that,
Right.
But then I'm like, no, I'm going to prove myself wrong. And that's where I stamped that thought down. And it wasn't necessarily the long-term goal, but, realizing that I could actually serve myself both now and in the future was so powerful. And so I think if people recognize that they have control of their money, that don't let their money have control of them anymore. Because if you're like, I'm hiding from it, your money's got control over you. You have no control. You have no choice in anything, that you're just reactive. And so instead of being reactive, you can be very proactive.
That is so beautiful. Wow. That I just feel so empowered just hearing you. I never really thought about it the way you just phrased that is, you got to direct where your money went. and as you were saying it wasn't I didn't get that energy of like control. It was more of this, like this innate power coming through of like, what almost comes to mind right now is just like a mother guiding her child along a certain path, like not telling them where to go or like don't stop there, like just gently guiding the child along, but knowing that she's getting to the child where she wants the child to go, even though the child might not know that they're supposed that's the intention, but it's very gentle. That's kind of the energy I get. And I think for a lot of women that's very important that is part of our feminine essence, is that gentle nurturing, like coming from the viewpoint of nurturing your money and getting it to a place that is going to be beneficial for you. Yeah. I love that. Look at that.
Yeah. Thank you. The other thing I realized was, like the FOMO, the fear of missing out. And I think that's a scarcity mindset for sure. But that for me was gone. People are the latest, greatest thing or something new or whatever it is. And they're talking about it and sharing it. And I'm like, that's really cool. They're like, are you going to get one? And I'm like, no, I'm already doing this and this. I had my sights so grounded, so anchored, and it was just easy to not feel that missing out because I knew what I was getting. I knew what I was headed for. And so, yeah, it was so powerful. It was just to have that and be able to do that. I mean, it's not easy. I don't want to say that, oh, okay, once you do that, it's just going to be easy. It takes a little bit of work and, directing it the right way and knowing how much when, right? If you're doing the now and the future, there's that balance of, am I doing enough for the future or am I living enough right now? But you really just got to be in tune with yourself and just keep going and just keep, like you said, sometimes there's things that we don't know. And so we make a decision and then we learn about it. And that's the same way on my money journey is like, oh, okay, well, that didn't work. So, let's try something different and just being able to, shift and make that change and not feel bad about what happened. It worked out. Out.
Yeah. Yeah. I like what you said. There is that balance between living now and preparing. Because, all we have is now. And we also have that innate wanting to live a long time. So even though we can't control, we don't know what the future brings, there is that sort of preparation, is that a word? I'm making up words. Being prepared for the future, for when that future becomes your now moment.
Exactly.
And even when you're talking about the relationship with money or in your dreams, being like, this is my goal, this is what I know I want. It's similar, I think, just how we show up in life. Like if we don't know ourselves or what we believe in, then we get caught up in that FOMO, that instant gratification, and any, that shiny object. Oh, that got my attention, I'm going there, and not using the discernment of, is that really truly for me? Like you said, those, a new technology comes and everyone's like, oh yes, that, or like, the new iPhone. And it's like, well, okay, yeah, that's great. It's great that it could do all that. And my phone still works. So, so the functionality of it gets me to what I need. Like, I don't need, I don't need like that big camera. That's not what I do with, my phone. So for that reason, you wouldn't, you just wouldn't get it because everybody else is doing it. But if you don't know what you're using something for or what it's going to give you, then we get lost, and then we can get lost in our relationship with money and our retirement goals or dreams, or not, as we're getting older.
Yeah. I know. As I was on my money journey with my husband, I'm like, do you know how much we're spending on cable TV? And it's the cutting the cord was really coming about. I'm like, but that's what he does. That's his thing. And I'm like, can't you just give up something? And he goes, can you give up your books? And I'm like, okay, nope. And it's like recognizing at that point, especially with us, joint financially, it's like, okay, that's his thing, this is my thing. Those are very, if you want to call them sacred areas, like that is not where we can cut. That is what we both work hard for, those two important things. And so realizing that, I mean, those are more of an immediate gratification, both of them, and so we definitely need to have those, but we can't have all of those. It's like anything and everything. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In your work, do you find what is the balance between people who don't want to look at their money because there's guilt and shame, and then there's the ones who don't want to look at the money because they don't want to give anything up or set an anchor down and get real about what their financial future is like?
Okay, so most of my clients, even more recently, have been single women. So divorced, whether recent or a few years. And so they're still raising those kids at home. And for them, it's really hard. Really hard for them to want to look at their money because they feel like it's going to take away from their children. And so, a lot of them, I'm just so amazed at their commitment, which, yes, I was committed to my daughter. I don't want it to sound like I wasn't, but it's like their commitment of like, I don't care and I don't want to because I don't want it to take away from them. And so I think that comes from obviously, being divorced, whatever happened there, and trying to keep it, I guess, the same. I don't know, but it's just so very hard for them to want to make things right. And I'm going to put that quotations, make things right, because they're afraid of the sacrifice their children are going to have to make. Most of them could care less. I think single moms are just amazing. They make it work. They're tough. They get through it in whatever way, shape, or form it takes. And so when they're finally brave enough to come to me and say, I need help because, and sometimes it's like, I just received a bill from my IRS and I've got to get on top of my debt, or I have this dream and I've only got a few more years to even get there. And so, just helping them understand, like, you can't have your children ignore money either. And that's where we go back to, money is taboo. And so immediately right there, I try to get them to start talking with their children, that you may not have to give up anything, let's look at your numbers first. But if you do, like, bring them in the fold, bring them into it and say, hey, we've got to make things work. How does this, I said, because talking about money is so important.
Yes.
And
yes, it really is.
Yeah. And if you as the parent isn't willing to do that with your child, nobody else will. And then what have they learned? And so it's like,
well, you're just perpetuating the cycle, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah. And I know people are, I tell people, I'm like, think about conversations. If you're in a group of people, whether it's coworkers, family, friends, some sort of gathering, if you had to choose between the topic of sex or money, I can guarantee you more people would more easily talk about sex than they would money. Because there's, they're more open. I don't want to say they're more open, but they know how to navigate that subject without talking about this, specifics of it, where they haven't quite learned that with money. And so I love to help people realize, like, you can do the same thing with money. If you're with coworkers, you don't have to say, well, what do you make? It can be more like, what bank are you using? Or what savings account are you using? What are you planning for this? Or what, and while it has that edge of money, you don't have to talk about specific numbers, and start learning from people, oh, I'm over at this bank. Oh, why are you there? And you can learn about different, savings vehicles. You can learn about different rewards they might be getting over there, whatever it might be, and just start expanding your knowledge with conversation.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. It's great advice. When you were talking about the single mothers, I remember a friend of mine, I think her son is like 12 or 13. Anyway, but even when it was little, and he would want something, and she wouldn't say, oh, we can't afford that. She would say, we're going to apply our money to something else. So, and she was applying it to something else, but she wasn't planting that seed of lack around him. I'm divorced as well. My girls are older now. However, there was, like, you did touch upon, especially for me, where I was the one that was divorced. It wasn't my idea or wanting it. So it was important for me to make sure that things stayed as status quo as possible, because I'm like, my personal world just got rattled. I don't want, and their world got rattled as well, of course. Yeah. But I just, as a mom, I wanted that, the landing to be softer for them. Right. There was that tendency, and like, okay, let's try to keep things as normal as possible. But then I found, like, I was getting myself into debt because I was living beyond my means to kind of keep things, quote unquote, normal. I wasn't aware at that time to be, like, very honest, like, okay, this is a challenging time. It's not that we can't afford this, but we're going to put our money elsewhere because those are more important right now for us, as opposed to those other things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's well, and I think, as we are going through situations like that, we want to say, oh, we don't have the money for that. And we don't think anything of it, but children do. They're like, oh, we don't have money. We're going to lose the house. We're not going to be able to do this.
Right.
And so, with your acquaintance, and knowing that, and that's the way my parents raised me. It was never, oh, we can't go, we can't have that, or we can't afford that. It was always, okay, we'll have to wait until such and such a time, if it was certain things, or we just, no, we don't spend our money on that. The one that stands out to me the most in growing up was, my parents had 7 kids, but me and my little sister were kind of like late bloomers. So we were pretty much the only 2 in the house, and the older kids were gone. But we'd go with her to the grocery store, and I'd be like, can we get the sugared cereal, And she would always tell me, no, not this week. And I always thought, which it could have been, that it was like for health reasons. I'm like, oh, she just doesn't want us to have sugared cereal. Mm-hmm. But I actually think it was more cost than anything, because there were the times that we'd ask, and she'd be like, yes, you can buy one now, but then you won't be able to have another one for a while. And so thinking back on it now, I'm like, that really, but I never thought of that. To me, it was like, oh, I shouldn't have sugared cereal, but I think it was really cost. So.
Yeah. Our words are extremely important. That's for sure.
Yes.
So in our few minutes left, I'd like to talk a little bit more about dreams, how you work with your clients in, getting to, what are their desires and their dreams, and getting them to go into that inner child and really have at it and really dream big.
Yeah, yeah. So I explained to them, same as I did on here, like drop everything. Like, what is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to have the most in life? And it not even just to say with your money, but just in life, because 99% of life requires money. So, trying to get them to break free, because a lot of them come to me with, they're like, I just need to get my debt paid off. And I'm like, that's great, but there's something beyond that. We've got to figure out what that is. So just really starting to get them to come up with, different ideas, different thoughts, different things they've maybe heard, and just get them to start crafting whatever that is. And it may not happen in 1 or 2 sessions. It might take a while. But then if they're like, oh, I love, these 3 ideas, that is like, okay, which one sits with you the most? Like, which one drums up those, the heart and the mind desires that really is like, I would just love life so much better, right? Hopefully we're loving life today, but so much better if this truly could come to fruition, and just grounding themselves in that dream to be able to, make the changes that they need to with their money. And so if they're the one that has come with paying off debt, then we look at going for the both of them, right? Because debt is short term and their other goal may be a little bit longer term, but how are we going to support both of them? And then lay out those exact steps. Like, this is what it looks like moving ahead. Step 1, step 2, step 3, and just defining that for them. Okay, what are you working on right now? And then what is the next step? And just making sure that they're prepared, they're committed to those in the sense that like it fits with them, it brings peace to them, and that's something they can choose to do.
Yeah. It has to be true for them. It has to be something that they can sustainably do, and they actually do it.
Yes.
Right.
And there's a couple exercises we do prior to that where we look at, our spending according to priority, and then our spending according to our values after we've defined our values. And then even we get into some mind mapping. And with all of that, it can really help define that dream a little bit more as well. So, hopefully we can massage it as a whole from day one. I always have it on the intake form. What is your dream? And then we kind of massage it from there. If that's, fleshed out enough, if that's whole enough, if it's true, and we can just keep going from there. So.
Yes. Do you find that people kind of shortchange themselves on their dream, where they can actually, do you feel like you have to probe them to like go deeper, like, what's a little bit more that you want this,
Yeah. Because I think, it's true. It's like we've gotten older and we've heard so many things like, oh, that really couldn't happen, or, oh, there's no way you could afford that. And so those thoughts are in the back of our mind, right? And I'm like, nope. Yeah, trying to remind them to let go of that. So my more recent client, she came to me with a fleshed out dream. She just didn't have the tools to get there. She wanted 100 doors by the time she was 50. She was 43 when we started working together, had her 44th birthday in the middle of it. And she's like, and she doesn't even own one door right now. So she doesn't even own her own home. And she's like, I know that's crazy. And I said, but don't diminish it. Mm-hmm. Who cares if it's 52 when you get 100 doors? I want you to leave it exactly the same, because you know what it is. You state it. I can feel it from you. She was just so passionate about it that there was no changing it. So yeah. I love when they come like that, but they're just like, how do I get there? But then helping others to, go beyond is sometimes just as, just as hard. It's just as fun. I love helping clients explore money.
I love that. Yes. I mean, you're getting me excited about diving more into my relationship. And I love that the mindset work as well, because I think that's one of a big blocker and a big tool into being successful as well. So what does it look like? What do you have certain programs that people, how would people work with you, and how do they get to do that?
Yes. So right now I have a 4-month one-on-one coaching program. We walk you through, clarity and cash flow, sustainability and systems, and then into your dreams and decisions and just build it out from there. It's a 4 weeks intensive for the first month. And then the next 3 months are every other week. We give you tools, like I said, crafting all of the dreams, all the steps, all the things to get there. They just need to fill out an interest form, which they can find on my website, and we can, and all my information about services is on there as well.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for doing this work and sharing your gifts. It's such an important topic to become the creatrix of your money journey in your life with money, and nurturing it and guiding money into where it is the most positive, sustainable, how it's going to bring you into your dreams and allow you to live your most, unbridled life, right?
Exactly.
You want to go big. So yes. Thank you so much, Dalene, for taking the time to speak with all of us today. To my listeners, you can get in touch with me on my website, deannerose.net, or email me at theunbridledwomanrises@gmail.com. Next week is a solo show. I will be talking about birth. I will be sharing my birth story and how important it is for women to take that time to look at their birth story and use it as a learning and a growth tool to become the best mom that you can be. So coming to the end of our show today with a blessing to the beauty before you, to the beauty behind you, to the beauty all around you, and to the beauty within you. Have a beautiful week, my unbridled women, and I will talk to you next week. Take care.